Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to another week in the world that we call Earth,
I thought you were going to go in the world of Manic Minds.
the world of manic minds.
Yeah.
On this planet we call Earth.
I know we talked about like alcohol and mental health in the video where I'd been a slam dunk and I was just not okay. But I know I talked a lot about when you're not prepared to drink a lot, and that's a prime example of when I was not prepared. And the thing is, normally if I'm like, oh, I'm going out for one or two, but I know everybody else is going out for more, I still do the prep work because I know that the minute I've had one or two, I'm going to stay out all night. But everybody who was going on Friday night had agreed we're having 2 or 3 drinks and a few games of pool, go home about 9 o'clock. That was everybody's agreement. That did not fucking happen. What time do we? I don't even want to know what time we fell through that door. It must have been at least 1 a.m. or something. But the thing with it is that then when I woke up yesterday and realised, fuck, none of my prep's in place. I'm very emotionally vulnerable right now. And very all over the shop because I hadn't done the preparation, so I wasn't prepared for it. And I mean, in a way, it was kind of ideal because you got to see firsthand what I mean. Because you've seen me really hungover when I've done the prep work, and yesterday was me hungover without the prep work. And I mean, still not really that bad, but that's come from years of experience of saying to myself, like, I woke up yesterday morning, the first thing I did was I was like, right, okay, I need a bottle of Lucozade Original and Nurofen Express because they are just the best things in the world for curing a hangover, especially Lucozade Original just stops your stomach from spinning, which, you know, always helpful. So I went and did that, come back, had a shower, attempted to have something to eat. I just couldn't. Like, I was gutted because I was really enjoying my food and I'm like, I can't eat this. Went for a nap, got up a couple of hours later, and then just was like, you know what, don't expect too much from yourself. Essentially this kind of thing that I would normally do when I prepped for it. So I looked at it and went, right, what do I absolutely need to do today and what can we do tomorrow? And we were like, right, okay, need to go to Tesco. But outside of that, everything else can be done tomorrow morning.
How were you? Because obviously, from an outside perspective, like, you seemed pretty okay. Obviously, you know, it's hard to tell sometimes what's going on kind of internally. Like, how were you from an emotional perspective?
I could tell, like, I was feeling like vulnerable because, well, known each other long enough that I don't do vulnerability well at the best of times. But when I'm hungover and I'm feeling a little bit like, you know yourself, everybody feels sorry for themselves when they're hungover. And I hate people who are like, oh, well, you've done that to yourself. Like, oh, fuck off. Like, that drives us crazy.
But especially people who, like, also drink as well.
Like,
you're the worst kind of person. You know how it feels like to be hungover. Don't give someone a hard time.
And you know how easy it is to say, oh, I'm only having 1 or 2 and then be hungover. Like, everybody knows it happens. But I, you know, feeling a bit sorry for myself. And to be honest, the big thing that I was noticing all day was that I felt like I was on the verge of tears all day. I mean, I'm not a crier at the best of times, but like, I was just on the verge of tears. And I knew, and I think this is the big difference it shows the difference between the amount of work I'm doing on myself now compared to a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, I'd have been like, oh, I'm upset because, and just to an extent fabricated reasons that I was upset, or like, you know, kind of fell into the rabbit hole of like, my life sucks and then depression. Whereas I could look at yesterday and go, I'm feeling that I feel shit, but it's because I'm hungover. It's the police skills, the substances, like, you know, analysing it and going, right, okay, I've hit substances and I've gone, hang on, there's alcohol in my system, which has affected how much sleep I've had. It's affecting whether I can eat or not. It's, you know, looking at the matter of fact is that actually my physical, like the way I was physically was what was impacting us feeling upset rather than my mental health being the problem. It was like, no, actually, it's just because you've drank too much last night,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're paying for it. And being able to recognise that helps.
Yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise, it's just like, oh, I'm so upset, and why am I so upset?
Mm-hmm. And like these sorts of things shouldn't really be like exclusive to people with mental health conditions, because like we all know, like substances we put in our bodies affect our mood. Like that's not exactly groundbreaking revelation anymore. And like people, I guess, kind of do it to a certain extent. Like you wouldn't generally, you wouldn't go out drinking if you had something like quite important to do the next day.
Yeah.
So like it's not it's not a million miles away from kind of everyday experiences, but but yeah, no, obviously like hearing it from someone who has certain conditions that people who may be watching this might have as well. It's good to kind of normalize the fact that alcohol messes you up, not
completely.
just when you're drunk, but for a day, maybe a couple of days later.
Like I know, had I forced myself to do yesterday everything that was on my to-do list for yesterday, I'd have been written off until probably Wednesday, because it would have really impacted my mental health.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality was that the things that we did have to do yesterday were things like record, which granted, okay, did it mean that now on Sunday morning we're sitting recording when normally we wouldn't be doing this? It's Sunday's normally chill.
Yeah.
But okay, at the end of the day, it was on me. I didn't have to drink that much, but I had a good time. I had a belter night. It was great. But now I've got to deal with the consequences of that. And the consequences are that I needed the Saturday to be able to recover, to make sure I didn't take a dip mentally. So now on Sunday, which is the last day off before I'm back at work, I now have a load of shit to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough fucking shit. Like my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me that, I used to drink more than I do now. I mean, I've got it down to like I rarely do. Like, if anything, I think you were quite surprised that I've decided to stay out more than one drink. It's not something
I was absolutely. When you text us saying I've had 3 pints, I literally was like, "What do you mean you're not at home?"
But it's nice to know, because like historically, alcohol used to be, for someone who's suffers with like social anxiety, is naturally quite nervous and shy around people. Like alcohol used to be the way to sort of release some of those sort of inhibitions and like be able to talk to people. But the problem with that is, and this is something I really had to kind of work on when I was younger, was that it pushes you too far past the edge of, like, so you're not just confidently talking to people anymore, you're kind of like saying things that probably you shouldn't say. And then it's the anxiety the next day of like, oh god, like I was like this last night, and that's not how normally people see me. That's what I used to really struggle with.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's really like quiet and shy until he's had a drink, and then he like says like the most random things, and it's like I never liked that massive contrast between the two. So I've kind of tried to neutralize that by working on my anxiety and my kind of conversation levels, and I'm much better at doing that now. But also just knowing that, like having limits when I'm drinking, and knowing that I don't particularly enjoy hangover. I know nobody likes hangovers, but I particularly get annoyed that it kind of wipes my next day out, especially at a weekend.
Yeah.
You've got 2 days off until you're back on work on Monday, and like ruining one just because you had a drink the night before on a Friday is not great. So yeah.
I think it's weird because like hangover doesn't particularly bother me. I mean, I'm quite good with just still. Don't get us wrong, I'll whinge. Like I'll whinge that I feel crap, but I'll still get what I need done. Like if I know that I can't manipulate my schedule, then tough shit, I'll just do it, because at the end of the day, I'm the one who's done this. But I think I now drink considerably more than I had done in the previous maybe 7 years. I mean, I used to drink a lot when I was like 15 through 21-ish. Like I drank a lot, like a lot, all the time, every day, pretty much. Like I was probably borderline and problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
And then obviously I decided to get serious about treating my clear problems, essentially. And that's, and then when I got on antipsychotics, and I mean, to be fair, I'd been on antipsychotics since I was 18, but I used to drink on my antipsychotics, which, not sensible. I have had one experience where, I mean, to be fair, if I knew I was going out drinking, I used to not take them that day so that I knew I could have a drink. But there's one time that I'd totally forgotten that I'd taken them, and I went out drinking, and that to this day, that was 7 years ago. That day is still black in my head. It was 8 p.m. one minute, the next minute it was 8 a.m. and I was waking up. I had no recollection of how I got there. Like, I did get home, quite impressed with myself, but I have no recollection of it.
I don't care what anyone says, but like blacking out when you're drunk, like, isn't a fun thing to do. Like,
No.
I'm talking about like when you wake up the next day and realise that you can't remember the last 8 hours. It's like, what the fuck happened in those 8 hours? Like,
that's the thing. It's the anxiety of not knowing.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I've had 2 instances in my life where I've blacked out, where like I literally cannot remember anything. And one of those instances, unfortunately, came back through the form of I read an article one day. I was lying in bed and I read an article, and it triggered the memory, and it brought back everything that my brain had clearly blocked out.
Yeah.
And it was then having to deal with the repercussions of that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, in that case, I think there's an extent of the blacking out was my brain minimizing something traumatic that had happened, mixed with how much alcohol I'd drank. But the other occasion where I blacked out was literally I was with my friends, everything was fine. Just I have seen video recordings of what was going on during that time, because like my friends were had camera phones, like, you know, were taking pictures and videos.
Yeah.
It's just more like a drunken mess with that one, rather than like a fuck, something traumatic happened. But like, I didn't drink for years. Like, I mean, and by didn't drink, I mean like I literally didn't drink.
Yeah.
I would buy like a glass of wine or a vodka and coke, and I'd still have it there 3 hours later. Like, I really, really forced myself to do all the work essentially to get well. And then once I was starting to get well, I started being like, all right, I can have a couple of drinks again. And then very quickly realised that as long as I do the work, if I want to go out drinking, I can.
Yeah.
But you have to do the work. Is the key point, because if not, you'll end up.
Yeah. And again, it's not something that there'll be many people who can relate to that if they kind of think it through. So again, like I think it is quite common for people with like social anxiety to use alcohol as a tool to, you know, building confidence, or whatever. And like, I guarantee that person will have far more experiences where it didn't quite work as they'd planned than it did. Sometimes it can be really beneficial, but others not. So like, you know, like you want to get across that like drinking or going out for a drink can be really fun with people that you know, and like really therapeutic actually, but you need to understand yourself as well and how it affects you.
Well, I mean, like, I'm a lovey-dovey drunk. And I know that I've always been that way inclined. And I think, I don't know whether it's because I struggle quite a lot with like telling people how I feel.
Yeah.
So when I've had a drink, I'll tell you how I feel. And the thing is, I'm not a hateful person by nature.
Yeah.
Like, not at all. So when I get to a certain level of drunk, I will be like, cuddle me, like, love you. And like, I'll be, my friends, there's been instances when I've been out and literally said to somebody who I can't stand at work, at an old job, and I was like, you know, even though sometimes I can't stand you, I do love you. I mean, that wasn't fun to have to walk back into work that one day, I'm not going to lie. but, you know, like, I am naturally, I think knowing who you are underneath, because we all put a persona on, we all wear a mask in front of people, knowing who you really are underneath helps, because drink does lower that mask. And if you are naturally an angry, hateful person who's got a problem with someone who's going to be present, you have to be an adult and take responsibility for knowing how you're going to react when you're drunk.
Yeah.
I've got the added perk of knowing that I'm just going to be like all over all of my friends, cuddling them and going, I love you so much. Like, you're my best friend.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how I've always been, even as a teenager, I've always been like a lovey-dovey kind of drunk. So the only time I'm not is when I drink beer. But I don't drink beer. If I ever sit with a beer, it's because that's my way of making sure that I do not have more than 2. Because I cannot drink more than 2, and I know if I start on beer and move to something else, that's when I'm volatile.
You should get into ale. Like, there's no chance you could sit there and drink pint after pint of ale all night. No. It's like having half a meal every time you have a pint.
No, thanks.
That's what I go for if I just want like a nice one in the sun, like just one, literally just one. Yeah.
Nah, cider as well.
No, sorry, it's just what you said about the taking pictures on camera phones and stuff. I just want to point out, like, we talk about the millennial Gen Z divide, and like the things that Gen Z didn't have to go through that we did. Right, they didn't have to go through like Facebook being pretty much the only social media platform out there, and like waking up the next day and seeing that someone you went out with has done a whole album and put it on Facebook where there's about 50 odd pictures where you could see yourself in them or whatever. Like, thank God for the, I guess, short attention span generation of Instagram. No one's going to sit there and like look for an album of 50 pictures on Instagram. But
I was more thinking, I'll never forget. There was, so obviously you have your family on Facebook. Like my Facebook is very filtered. I control who sees what through Facebook. I mean, I have only just gone back on Facebook after like a year off.
Yeah.
But like that's where all my family are. And then apart from my cousins, who there is a very mutual understanding because they're at the they're in their late teens and early 20s now as well. So there's a nice mutual understanding between the three of us. Is we know what's going on, but like you don't like nobody says anything. Like that's just if you see something on Instagram that you think you shut your mouth, like you leave it alone. Like, and that's just how it is. It's fine. It's not a problem because again they're adults. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, but when I was younger, and I'll never forget waking up and I had so many notifications and I was like, what the fuck is this about? We'd been camping for like 2 days. I'd then gone home, showered and cried in bed until like I fell asleep because I was so fucking hungover. Like, because obviously we'd been out for we literally had drank for an entire weekend. I had not slept. I'd just done nothing but drink. That was the weekend. It was the same weekend I fell in a fire. Thanks. Thanks, Joey, for pulling me out of that. I think I was only about 15. But like, I can remember waking up and there being all these notifications, maybe like, what the fuck's going on? And one of my friends had posted photos from the weekend. And I was 15. My mum knew I smoked because, quick side bit, I used to always tell her off for smoking, but I used to smoke out my bedroom window, and being the window cleaner had this slight understanding where what I would do is I would line my cigarette butts up on the window ledge on the outside, and when he cleaned the windows he'd get rid of them for us. Don't ask how this happened, it just sort of happened.
It's very nice.
And then there was one week, I don't know if he'd been on holiday or whatever, but he didn't do it, and I was out and my mum went to open my bedroom and she opened my bedroom window to all these fucking cigarette butts. Oh, honestly, like I remember being mortified. But anyway,
was she more angry of you smoking or like the hypocrisy of you telling her not
It was the hypocrisy, because at the point that in the car when she pulled us on the fact that I was smoking, she was like, and she asked us to roll her a cigarette. So it was more the hypocrisy of like, how dare you?
Yeah.
But obviously, naturally, when you're a teenager, you're trying to cover your tracks because you know you shouldn't be smoking. Yeah. You're trying to cover your tracks, and you're like, oh, you shouldn't be smoking, bad for you.
Yeah.
Like when actually you're thinking like, fucking hell, like the one perk of her being a smoker was she couldn't smell the smoke on me. But back to what I was saying, and I remember this photo being on Facebook, and it's me with two of my friends, and I've got a cigarette hanging out my mouth, and I am clearly hammered, like absolutely fucking wrecked. Like, eyes, like you can see in my eyes, I've drank way too much, like my hair, everything, like I look like a total mess, and there's just a cigarette in my... Have you seen Skins?
Yeah.
Kind of think about photos from Skins, like that kind of vibe, like that was how it looked, me and a couple of my friends. And I just remember being like, I've never clicked untag so fast in all my fucking life, but the damage was done.
Yeah. Now I know that you like to channel your inner is it Effie?
Effie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only watched the 3rd season of that. Yeah.
Sorry. I need a drink.
Yeah, I mean, I know that somewhat related, but I know that you want to talk about self-care a little bit.
Yeah.
This week,
I think
the way you'd put it, kind of unconventional self-care.
I think it's because in this week off, I've realised how unconventional my self-care is. And like, I'd always kind of just fobbed off people's opinions of the way I do self-care because I'm like, right, okay, but I know me and I know this works. So if you don't think that works, that's fine. You do you, hun, but this works for me.
Yeah.
Whereas I think especially over the last kind of year or so when I've been talking more frequently about self-care, I think, first of all, a lot of the stereotypical things that you would view as self-care come across very feminine.
Well, yeah, I mean, we said that, didn't we?
Yeah, like, take a bath.
A couple of weeks ago,
yeah,
it was,
like,
Mm-hmm.
Take a bath. Like, and I mean, like, the big one, like, I always used to get told, like, go and get your nails done. And I mean, don't get us wrong, that does help.
Yeah.
Like, but as in, that helps with the general day-to-day, like, feeling better about myself, having, like, those little things.
Yeah.
But when I need to do a total reset, like when I'm burnt out, I know it's coming, I need to do a total reset, and I can feel that I'm on the brink. I do have a way to do that is unconventional. And it is essentially revert back to being a teenager and pull an all-nighter.
Yeah.
Stay awake for 24 hours. Like,
yeah, I mean, you've said this before, and like, I mean, you're right that, conventionally speaking, like, if you hear that someone's been up all night, like, it's usually taken as a bad thing. It's like, oh, what's going on? What's wrong with you? Is it a sign of depression or whatever? But like, the way you explained it to me kind of made a lot of sense. So, please explain that again.
So, the way that my brain works, and I think there's a lot of people of our generation will understand this. If I am just chilling, doing nothing, this doesn't shut the fuck up because I'm not being productive. There is a million and one things that I could be doing that would be more productive than sitting here watching something on telly.
For anyone currently listening on Spotify, Nikki is pointing to her head.
Okay. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about that. Do you know why I keep forgetting? Because I keep forgetting to upload them to Spotify. Yeah. That's where we're at in life right now.
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah. But there's a level of expectation from people. There's a level of expectation from people.
There is. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, it took how long before we broke down?
It's okay. At this point, I think anyone who watches us frequently would know that we're both fucking idiots.
Yeah.
It's
fine. We can salvage this. Carry on.
There's a level of expectation from people, for you to do certain things in certain time frames. Like, if you look at a bog standard work week, right? You work 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. Your evenings are pretty much a write-off because by the time you come home and you do the little bit of housework and all that sort of shit, and you've made your tea and you've had an hour to relax, you've got to go to bed because you've got to go to work the next day. Like you said, you get 2 days off. Right, well, at least one of those days, there are certain like social conventions that have been drilled into our brains that we have to do. So you spend Saturday doing your errands and like getting your house sorted, or like popping to see family and all that sort of shit. Now all of a sudden you've got Sunday left, but on the Sunday now I'm thinking about the fact that I need to make sure I'm prepped for my work week. So I need to do all my food prep for the week. I need to make sure all my clothes are washed and dry. Like anything else that's required, admin, that sort of shit. So you don't really like actually get a lot of time to yourself. And I think even when you take time for yourself, like a holiday, like a week's holiday essentially, unless you actually go away, like if you just take a week off, you end up. How many people do you hear who go, "Oh, I've got 4 days off," and you're like, "Oh, what are you going to do with 4 days off?" And they're like, "Do you know what it is? That cupboard under the stairs has needed sorted for months, so I'm going to do that." Because that's what we think about. We're like, right, okay, I've now got time to deal with the things that I normally don't have time to deal with. And you don't actually like properly look after yourself. And for me, there is a certain level of perfectionism there, a certain level of people pleasing. Granted, people pleasing's part of the reason why I ended up doing a couple of appointments in my week off as well, because I just was like this inability to say like, sorry, I'm on holiday. I mean, like, granted, obviously self-employed, so like, if somebody says, hey, can I have an appointment with you, turning it down is kind of a silly idea. But anyway, so during the day, if I lay on, like, for instance, if I went to try and watch Bridgerton season 3, and I know that once I start watching that, I'm going to want to watch that entire season, like just binge it. And I know that about myself because I really fucking love Bridgerton. So if I sat down at 10 a.m. to watch that, 8 episodes, that's going to take us to 6 p.m. There's no way I'm going to do that, because in my head, all that's going to happen is, granted, okay, yeah, I might watch it. You know what's going to happen after I finish it? I'm going to be like, oh my God, I've just wasted an entire day off. I could have done so much in that day, like all this other shit is going to be playing over in my head about like, oh, you know, like that needed sorting or this needed doing, or I could have gone and seen my family. Like I could have done all these things. However, I mean, I've got the perk as well of I am a night owl by nature. I like to be up late. I'd rather be up late and sleep a bit later than the other way around. But if I get up at say 10 a.m. Well, I got up at 9 that day actually because it was last week when I did this. So I got up at 9 and I went about me day and did what I needed to do throughout the day, the little bits and pieces that would make my life easier, some admin ready to go back to work, marketing plans, business plans, that kind of thing. 10 o'clock came around, 10 p.m. came around. Everybody starts texting us to say they're going to bed, night, like all this sort of shit. I went Bridgerton. And I sat in my office from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. and I watched the entire season of Bridgerton completely guilt-free. I didn't feel guilty in any way, shape or form about it. And then when it finished at 6 o'clock, I got up and I went and had a power nap. And I power napped for a couple of hours. And I got up and I'd had enough sleep that I could get through what was there of my day. Because obviously I was conscious that because I'm getting up later, I haven't got a full day if you want to keep your sleeping pattern the way it should be for work. So get up, I think I got up at 12. So I'd had 6 hours sleep. I got up, got showered, got sorted, did the few things that I needed to do, met you, went to the gym, went home, and I went to bed at a reasonable time and then got up and carried on about my life. And for me, that, I mean, I think you even said it was fucking hell, like the difference is night and day from after you having that one overnight where you could just do what you wanted to do guilt-free. I think that's the key bit, guilt-free.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're so used to seeing, you know, if you go on to like an NHS website and look at like depression or anxiety symptoms and you think, a lot of people who struggle with anxiety and depression tend to stay up late because they're in a place where they don't have like expectations on them, stuff, as if that is like a bad thing. And sometimes it is, but like you've just described there, like a perfectly kind of reasonable example of how, like, if that works for you, it works for you. You know, and it's the whole, let's not blanket over mental health conditions and like keeping your mental health in a good state, because for every individual out there, there's a different way of doing things. And, you know, granted, you're, you've got like generally, you know, things in your life that are like together, and you know that like that you knew what the benefits would be of having that kind of all nighter. You know, it wasn't I'm giving into my mental health issues. I think that's just really important to point out, because it is just drilled down to us so often that if you're in any way someone who is awake between the hours of, say, like midnight and 6 o'clock, it's normally a bad thing unless you work nights or whatever.
I think the thing I've always found interesting, because I mean, in general, I am more productive at night. I am way more productive overnight than I am during the day. And it is purely because during the night, everybody else is asleep. So A, nobody can bother me. And B, I can't find somebody to distract me so that I don't have to do the things I don't want to do. I've got no excuses. Like I can just, like when I used to be up all night all the time. I used to literally sleep all day and then be up all night. I'd be up from like say 4 p.m. until like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. and then I would sleep during the day, and that was just, it worked for me. And it was during uni, because I found actually my uni work was of better quality and I could get it done more easily overnight because I didn't have any distractions. But
I think a lot of people struggle with that transition from student life to like the world of work. Because those little individual like idiosyncrasies or whatever, I don't know if that's even the right word, but those little things, like, you realize when you become an employee of somewhere, like you kind of have to fit in to like the structure of like work time and office time and all this. And it's like, even, you know, you work, if you do a typical Monday to Friday job, like your evenings feel like the purpose of them is to recharge so that you can continue being a good employee the next day. And it's really difficult for anyone who's in that sort of traditional kind of work week setup to have any individuality over their mental health, because they pretty much have to. And it's like, the reason why it's frowned upon in society to be up in the middle of the night is because you're not being of any use to anyone. You're not functioning and like contributing to the bigger goal of
capitalism.
Yeah, basically. And it's like we've kind of almost lost that sense of I'm just going to exist for me, and I'm going to be a human being rather than an employee or a parent or family member or whatever it is.
Thing is, like if you went like way back, like from an evolution point of view, some of us did used to stay up all night because we were protected. It was like while people would sleep, someone had to be awake because we lived in a world of predators. And like, granted, I know that that's totally different now, but like
we've got different types of predators these days.
Exactly. But but like knowing yourself such a key part. Like I know how long I can stay awake for, and I'm very well aware I've had enough people tell me.
I'm sorry. I just got an image of someone standing outside, like a bedroom window, protected against those. Anyway, carry on. No, you can't carry on. I'm not going to hear that.
Welcome to Daniel Has ADHD. But like knowing yourself, such a key part, because I know I can stay awake for like nearly 2 full days, like nearly a full 48 hours before I will crash. Like, and within reason, I can get ratty, but I tend to get more ratty if the person's being a pain in my ass. Like, if you know that someone hasn't slept much, winding them up's not a smart idea, whether they're mentally ill or not. Like, it's just not a smart idea. But like, I remember in January, I had an assignment due, like one of my last assignments for my masters, and I sat up because in typical me fashion, I hadn't done it until the night before, and I sat up all night. And I submitted at 5 a.m. I then grabbed some breakfast or tea, whatever you want to call it. I went in the shower and I went to work, and I did a full day at work. And I can remember talking to you. I think it was on lunch. You come out at the same time as me, and you were like, "Are you all right? You look knackered." And I went, "Yeah, I've been to bed." And you were like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, yesterday morning when I got up at 6 a.m. yesterday morning." You're like, "Yeah." And I went, "That was the last time that I slept." Like, it is currently 1 p.m. the following day. The fact that I am in a good mood should be quite impressive. But I know that about myself. Like, I know that if something like that happens, I can do that. Not all the time, obviously, because that's not healthy. But if I need to do it, I know I can. There are plenty of people who can't do that. And knowing your own limitations, basically, because I mean, I am a perfectionist and I am very big on the whole, like, well, why can't I do that? I can do anything I put my mind to.
Yeah.
But I do know my own limitations. And I do have them in all areas of life.
It's a shame that it needs pointing out on a podcast of like, it's good to know yourself and know your limitations. Like surely that's the only point of being here, is to, like, you're you, whatever that means, for a good, if you're lucky, 85, 90 years. Like, why wouldn't you spend that time figuring out like who you are and like how you work? And yes, granted, there's a wider societal kind of context you need to be conscious of, but it shouldn't completely dictate the way you see yourself.
But I think that kind of stems into everything, doesn't it? I mean, again, like I remember, like I think it was around January time, and I went to the shop for something, and I went in pajamas and slippers. The amount of times, by the way, that I leave here to go to the shop, and I get halfway to the shop and realize I've got my slippers on, and I just think, fuck this. Like, and I don't get why that's a bad thing. Like, I don't care that it's 1 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon and I'm stood in the shop in my pajamas buying a can of Monster and a pack of cigs. I couldn't give a shit.
I would say that we're normalising it more these days, though.
I think since COVID it's helped because everybody kind of understands now that like there's obviously a lot more people still work from home. There's a lot more flexibility with how you work and what days you work. Whereas I think pre-COVID, like if you saw someone like that, you'd be like, "Oh my god, well they clearly don't work."
Yeah.
Like, like, I'd love to be able to just sleep as long as I want. Like, actually, that I am awake and working, but I'm not required to, get dressed to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, I think really, actually, interestingly, because I know we talk a lot about unconventional self-care there, in the sense of just knowing, as long as it works for you, and it's right, as long as it works for you and it's not harmful to anybody, then fair enough. But I never really hear guys talk about self-care. I don't know whether it's because as well the term like, oh, I'm just going to go and do it. Like it's a very girly thing to be like, hashtag self-care day.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're not going to see it 9 times out of 10. You're not going to see like a straight man doing that.
Well, as the official representative of the straight white male community on this podcast, I no, I mean, I can speak to myself. I mean, like the way I define self care a lot is based on like I'm a philosophical like Marxist, always have been, and I like channel everything through the prism of like what society and capitalists expect of you. So for me, self care is those times when you're actually doing something where literally there's no expectation on anyone else like to do that thing. No one else even knows you're doing it. It's just your time, and it's not for anything else other than the purpose of doing that thing in itself. So, and that can be a lot of different things. So I one thing I love to do in the evenings is go on TikTok, and there's a guy, content creator called Paolo Panini, who specializes in like basically like opening packs of football cards and stickers, and like you can just sit there and watch him do it, or you can like get involved and like buy stuff in his store and all. I'm like, this isn't a pre-prepared like advert for anything. No doubt, it just came up organically. But like it's that kind of activity where if anyone kind of asks, "Oh, what are you up to?" Like in a way, I'm kind of almost embarrassed to say what I'm doing because it's such a like trivial non-thing in many ways. But I'm zoned into it in a way that I completely forget that I've got work tomorrow or that I've got stuff to do that I'm putting off. It's just channeling into enjoyment for enjoyment's sake.
It's interesting that you say that though, because I mean, for me personally, I watch a lot of ASMR videos. Like that is my ultimate way to relax. Like that, 100. And to an extent, I am embarrassed. Like if somebody says to us, like there's quite often I will text a friend back and say, "Oh, I'm going to doom scroll on TikTok." When what I actually mean is I want the next hour to sit and watch this ASMR video because it relaxes. But I'm too embarrassed to say that that's what I want to do because like there's society puts a bit of stigma on a lot of things.
But even those, like I mean, I enjoy those as well, but it's become a certain. It's like they're almost there as a way of like maintaining you to keep going whilst like you're trying to recover from the day and get ready for the next day. Like there's a certain, there's a market for it, like on YouTube and Insta and all this. Like there's people who do that for a living, basically, like ASMR content. It's similar to the way that sort of meditation's gone, where the Western view of meditation is like, well, it will help you to relax and think more clearly. And you think, yeah, well, why do you want me to think and relax more clearly? So I can be a better, like, productive employee the next day. Yeah. Like meditation, like like the. You think like ancient India, people sitting there meditating, it wasn't because they had to get up the next day and go to work. It was like a spiritual, like immersive experience for its own sake.
When you said before about like almost to an extent embarrassed to say like this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I really do think that actual self-care is a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
I think the things that each of us on an individual level genuinely find the most enjoyable and the most like chilled out and like switch your brain off and will really enjoy doing this are the things that we would be kind of embarrassed to say to our loved ones, this is what I like to do.
Because that there's a certain judgment, like whether it's sort of valid or not, like that, the whole thing of when someone's got a week off the next week and you're sitting there and you're a bit jealous. And you're like, oh, well, it's all right for you. You've only got a couple of days left and you've got a week off. And it's like that jealousy and resentment comes from the fact that you're not able to do that. So then, like when you're the person doing the self-care, you're almost like, I don't really want to say what I've done this week because it's going to sound from the outside like I've done absolutely nothing and I've been really unproductive. But actually, like you're the only one who gets to decide how productive and valid it is. Like no one else does.
Like, I mean, realistically, in my full week off, the only thing that I actually did was I turned my pantry into an office because I just got up and went into autopilot, and I'd had this idea 2 days prior, which, by the way, no planning at all. I just got up and went into autopilot, and before I realised what I was doing, I was like, I am halfway through emptying my pantry. Well, we're here now. Let's just do this. But apart from that, especially I did that on the Monday, I think. Either the Monday or the Tuesday. I think it must have been the Monday because I'm sure you then said it was like, well, I knew that you would end up doing something because I could tell by after 6 hours you were fed up. But like then I hid in there for like 4 days just to myself. Again, not obviously not an advert, but Sidemen on YouTube. I love the Sidemen. I can just sit and if I really want to just zone out to something, I will just sit and watch the Sidemen.
Yeah.
Especially the Sidemen diss track era. Like, oh, I just love it. It's so much fun.
I don't know what that means, but okay. Well, I know what a diss track is. It's when you put something together as a kind of like an attack on somebody else.
The Sidemen are a YouTube group.
I knew that.
But yeah, but like that kind of thing where you're kind of a little bit like, and I think especially when it comes to the Sidemen, because the few times I've said, I remember at a previous workplace being like saying something about the Sidemen, and it was like mortifying that I watched the Sidemen. Like everyone was just like you, and I think that again comes back to judgment of like what it's the same like say with football cards.
Yeah,
like if that's what you enjoy, it's what you enjoy. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Wrestling's always been a big one for me. Like, you're into wrestling? I can't see that. Like, that just doesn't seem right. What the hell do you mean? But that's another activity that is like just completely trivial and frivolous, and you enjoy it for what it is, but it doesn't have any kind of impact on your life, really. You know. So, like, staying up to watch WrestleMania is something I do every year, and there's still an element of shame about it. Like, but as the older I get, the less I'm caring. But it used to be a kind of I've got the day off because I'm staying up to watch WrestleMania.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. Yeah, it's you feel judged. I know obviously when we were first starting talking to each other, and it was when we were at Christmas night out, and something had been said about WWE, and both of us were like, "Whoa, wait, you watch that?" Like, because it's just it's very uncommon. Yeah. Like, so it's like, all right, okay, cool, sit and talk about that for ages. But again, like you say, like most of the time when you say, oh, it's the Royal Rumble, so I've got Monday off. What do you mean you're taking a day off so that you can stay up and watch wrestling? Right, well, I'm sorry, but when everybody does it for the fucking Super Bowl, nobody bats an eye then, do they, right? I don't like American football, I like WWE, fuck off. I really need to stop doing that. It's about going from being really calm to talking like that. Just in general life, I mean, I need to stop doing that.
It's slightly less of an issue now. Again, young people not knowing how good they have it, but, you know, because the WWE typically do their pay-per-views on a Saturday now.
Oh, yeah,
whereas for so long it used to be a Sunday night. If you had school the next day, it's like you can't watch it live pretty much.
Yeah, I know. I remember being like, the only one that I was like, the two that I was ever really bothered about were WrestleMania and Royal Rumble, because the Royal Rumble's my favourite, and I used to hate, especially when it was that point where I was like, say, 15 and I wanted to watch it, but I couldn't stay up to watch it. But also social media was a thing, so instantly there would be no point in us watching it because it's ruined the moment I open Facebook, because God forbid 15-year-old me could not have not gone on Facebook for a day. Whereas, 28-year-old me will quite happily go, okay, if I cannot reasonably watch that, then I'm just going to stay off social media.
It was always worse with the Rumble as well, because, like, if you accidentally go on Facebook and see something about WrestleMania, it might ruin like one match, but you think, oh, that's fine, I just won't read any others. There's probably loads of other matches that I won't know the results of. But you open the Facebook and you see you won the Royal Rumble, it's almost like the whole point of watching the match is now gone.
Yeah, exactly. Because the most you're going to get is there might be a couple of little spots from earlier in the match that set up like a storyline ready for Mania for between other people, but the majority of it is obviously about who wins it, for who's going to be your main eventer and what storyline they're going to build. I think especially like in recent years when it's been Reigns who's been champion, it's like, oh, can they take them down? All that sort of shit. However, we are very much moving towards WWE.
There will be an episode at some point about wrestling,
probably,
so let's not use up all the material.
But like, that is a prime example of something that is viewed as a whole as like, I can't think how to put it, but like kind of like a ew. Like, what do you mean you watch that? Like, judgmental, like, whereas if you're like, oh, I'm really into football, people are like, yeah, okay. But wrestling, for some reason, I hate it. It's fake, right?
Is it? Wow. Didn't realise.
Who would have thought? It's just basically Coronation Street with violence.
Are you saying that Undertaker was trapped in a coffin and got burnt alive, but then he survived, so that wasn't real? Yeah. Anyway. There's a whole thing. I don't know if this is but stigma around wrestling. There was a great article that Steve Merchant wrote. So do you remember Fighting with My Family?
Yeah.
The story about Paige and that. And Steve Merchant was one of the producers on that. Or I don't know if he was a producer. He was involved in it somehow. And he did a great article in The Guardian saying that, there's pretty much any sport out there where like British people aren't typically like that involved. If there's a British star that makes it big, it's normally like massive news. Yeah. But even in like the Olympics, where you're watching like the British team do well at like curling or whatever, and it's a big story and it's cool. It's good on the Brits. And he was like, "Why the hell does no one know who Paige is outside of people who watch wrestling?
Yeah,
because that's a massive story. Like she's from Norwich. She, was really involved in the indie like circuit for a while, and is pretty much now, or was at the time, like top of the tree in terms of women's wrestling.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good article. And he was saying it was basically like snobbery.
Yeah.
It's seen as something that in America anyway, it's got a reputation of like used to of like the hillbilly sort of like I'm gonna watch my wrestling while I polish my rifle.
Yeah, I can see that actually. But yeah, like I don't know whether it's just because in general I'd never really judge people for anything. Like, there is obviously certain things that we all agree upon are just not okay.
Yeah.
But outside of those handful of things, I'm like, you do you, hun. Like, if that makes you happy and it's not hurting anybody, then who cares?
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, you know your own likes and interests, you know how you're feeling inside. Like, if staying up to watch fucking WrestleMania for what is now 2 nights in a row and kills you, but not the point. Like, if doing that is what's gonna make sure that you then can continue to get up and go to work every day for the next 6 weeks until the next pay-per-view or whatever it is, who gives a fuck?
And like, there we say it, but if you got something to look forward to in your life, like embrace the fuck out of that.
Oh, because,
again, if you're sitting there on a really crappy Wednesday and you think, oh, actually, like I'm going to finish in a couple of days on Friday, and then I've got the Monday off because I'm going to be watching WrestleMania all weekend.
Yeah,
fantastic, great.
Look forward to the little things in life. Yeah. I mean, you know this. I look forward to my tea every night. It is what gets me through the day. Like, if I'm like, right, okay, what amazing food can I have tonight? Which is a very, very different change of pace to what I was a few years ago. Like, I hated food, but like, if I can be like, oh, I can have mince and dumplings today, like that's going to get me through the shit that I don't want to do. Yeah. The same way that if it's like, oh, actually, I know that I've got a nail appointment, or I know that I'm going out to play pool with my friends, whatever it is, little things will get you through. And no matter how much people don't like to recognize that for what it is, that is self-care.
I mean, you could probably summarize it by saying that self-care is something that no one else other than yourself needs to know about.
Yeah.
Like if you feel weird telling people what you plan to do the weekend, just don't tell them. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they don't really care. Like, they're asking you out of politeness normally anyway. So really that bothered.
Nobody gives a fuck.
Or some people ask as a way of like finding something to kind of judge you on. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
I mean, just for me, I'm very like, again, if it's what you want to do and it makes you happy and it makes you, I know I've said this before previously about like, I don't give a fuck what gets you out of bed in the morning, whether it be the fact that you need to water your fucking plants. Like, if it gets you out of bed, then you're winning at life. Like, literally, that is, for me personally, if I haven't got something to look forward to in the form of like you said, something that is for me, it's not for other people, then why am I getting out of bed? Because at that point, I'm living for every other fucker. I'm doing what is expected of me, and quite frankly, I don't really like that at the best of times. But if the fact that, oh, I want to grow veg in my back garden, which is something that I did attempt to do last year, but then I saw a rat in my garden and that just ruined my life. But anyway, like if that's what's going to make me enjoy my time, then happy days. Like, I remember it was my old job. It was one before I met you. And I can remember being sat there, and you'll know this because obviously you think the same way as me. I couldn't get the idea of growing pumpkins out my head.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to grow pumpkins, and it was just stuck, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I was like, do you know what it is? Until I buy the pumpkin seeds, it's not going to leave, because I know myself. So I was like, I'll go and get some pumpkin seeds. But then naturally, because, while I'm there, I get pumpkin seeds and carrot seeds and loads of other shit. And now I've bought plant pots and soil, and now I'm growing fucking pumpkins because that's just. But it was fun. Like, I enjoyed it until I saw the rat, and it put me off forever. And now I really need. It's a tub of just sludge essentially that I need to deal with. But like that was something that I was kind of made to feel like I should be embarrassed about the fact that I wanted to grow pumpkins. Like, the amount of times since then I've said, like, oh, I would love to grow pumpkins properly, and people are like, grow pumpkins, and I'm like, yeah. Like, why would you want to grow pumpkins? First of all, why would I not want to grow pumpkins? And
second of all, what are you planning to do with your weekend?
Yeah.
It's probably something very, very dull and conventional.
Yeah. And thirdly, like, they're ready right on top of Halloween, which means I can sit and carve loads of them, or I can be like, I can make loads of spooky things. So and to make it even better, I can have multiple spooky things that didn't cost me any money because I didn't have to buy the fucking pumpkins because I grew them myself. See, like, initiative.
Again, capitalists don't want you growing your own pumpkins because people out there that do it for you.
Well, on the plus side, they'll be very happy about that fact because I did not grow pumpkins at all. They did not grow. They were not in the correct. Listen, right, the one thing with me is I don't think things through. I'm just going to try it and see if it works. I know better, but I know better now. But to be fair, if my mum watches this, I'm so about to drop Grandad in this. But I didn't do this. I want to point out I didn't. It would have been fucking hilarious to have done it. But there's a patch of soil in my mum's garden, and me and my Grandad were on the phone, and I was telling about how I was growing pumpkins and stuff, and he was like, they'd be better grown in your mum's garden. I was like, oh yeah, because she'd allow that, wouldn't you? And he was like, just next time you go over and you go out for a cig, just chuck a few in the soil and see what happens. I didn't, but I still think that would be fucking hilarious.
It's a good idea though, because by the time she'd notice, it's like, that's a bit too late anyway.
It's pumpkins now. To be fair, the main reason that I didn't was because she's got a cat, and I can't risk Woody eating the pumpkin seeds, because then how do I explain that? Basically, Mum, I'm really sorry I killed your cat because I was doing a bit. I can't do that, really.
Have you ever listened to Gardener's Question Time on BBC4?
Yeah.
Speaking about little unconventional things that not everybody admits to. Like, I've been in the car with my dad listening to Gardener's Question Time. It's very, very therapeutic. It's like question time, like you see on a Thursday night. But it's like, it's a panel, and it's like a phone-in show because it's obviously on the radio. But it is literally just people like asking questions about like tips and stuff for their gardening. This is a panel of gardeners. It's fantastic.
No, not actually heard that one. There's loads of things like that though, and I'm like, you know what? If it interests you, fuck everyone. Like, if you like it and it helps you look after you, then who cares? If staying up all night to binge watch a season of Bridgerton is gonna reset your brain, do it. If lying on a night and listening to or watching someone open cards, and I mean, I think a lot of people would go football cards, but I want to take a moment and say that 99% of the people who went football cards buy Pokemon cards, they're the same fucking thing. Like, it's the same principle, it's just a different thing. Oh, you're looking at your little collection right behind you.
One of my favourites is Gary Lineker's sticker from Euro 92. You can see that.
Listen, I mean, realistically, when it comes to you with football cards, I can't massively judge. A lot of people in my life like Pokemon cards, and I have a coaster that's got a Psyduck Pokemon card stuck inside the coaster that my friend made us because I really like Psyduck. But of course I do.
Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah, but
I can't quite remember what I'm doing here.
I'm gonna say on that delightful note, because I think I've definitely realised throughout this recording that I think you might still be a little bit hungover. I'm definitely still a little bit woozy, like, I can't lie.
I am my normal energetic self, as you can clearly tell.
So yeah, on that note,
to be fair, I could probably do with a coffee actually.
Yeah, shock. Yeah. Well, do that then. So coffee, and then go to Hoppins. Yeah. Amazing. Right. Well, on that delightful note,
don't be a dick.
Yeah. Oh, you beat me to it this week.
Oh yeah.
Bye.